Hey folks, welcome back to Epic Cheating Tailies. Top off your coffee, make yourself comfortable, and let me spin you a story that proves some red flags look a whole lot clearer in the rearview mirror. Ethan was 34, comfortably self-made, running a mid-sized design build company that finally ran itself on something close to autopilot. All his buddies had long since paired off, swapped bachelor nights for diaper duty, even bought houses in the same cul-de-sac. Ethan kept promising he'd get around to dating seriously once the next quarter's numbers land. Problem was, by the time those numbers looked good, he blinked and realized Friday nights felt echo loud in an empty condo. When he did jump back into the dating pool, the water was iffy. Too many dinners where the woman spent more time eyeing his watch than meeting his gaze. The gold diggers irritated him. The genuine ones never seemed to cross his path. Bit by bit, frustration turned into bourbon, and bourbon into late-night club hopping, a scene he'd aged out of but clung to because it beat scrolling real estate apps alone. One neon-soaked Saturday, he met Chloe.25, nightclub regular, legs for miles, and a laugh that sliced straight through bass speakers. Ethan lost his perfectly organized mind in under 30 seconds. That night, he scored exactly one thing: her phone. Number glowing in his contacts like a winning lottery ticket. The next 8 weeks rocketed past in a blur of rooftop dates, pop-up flower deliveries, and shopping sprees that made his American Express wheeze. Chloe soaked up every drop of attention. Then 2 months in, she showed up at his place shaking so hard he feared she'd break. Positive pregnancy test in one hand, mascara tracks down both cheeks. Ethan's heart should have hammered. Instead, the sword.family was the one box he hadn't checked yet, and fate had just handed him a shortcut. He lifted her, spun her around the kitchen, promised they'd figure the rest out together. They fast-tracked the courthouse paperwork, moved her suitcase into his condo, and started renovating a nursery. Ethan's mom, Linda, was less than thrilled. Linda openly believed her only son, worth 7 figures on paper and armed with 3 degrees, should marry a woman who could at least pronounce initial public offering. Chloe, GED, and no family tree worth bragging about, set Linda's teeth on edge. You found yourself a pretty little gold mine. And you're the mine, Ethan, she hissed over Bluetooth one afternoon. Ethan let the criticism roll off. Chloe never rose to the bait. After the baby boy arrived and the wedding band flashed in photos, Linda cut off contact completely. Ethan hated losing his mom, but seeing Chloe beam every time he chose her side made the sacrifice feel almost noble. Life looked Instagram perfect. Ethan hauled Chloe to charity galas, industry mixers, wine tastings, any room where he could show off the woman he adored. Whenever she pouted and breathed, "I have nothing to wear," he slid his black card across the marble island with a theatrical flourish. "Baby, go fix that problem," she'd giggle. "You spoil me and disappear for another sax run." Turns out Ethan wasn't the only one spoiling her. 3 mornings a week, she kissed the baby, ruffled Ethan's hair, and claimed she was off to a high-end gym to tighten up the last 10 pounds. Lift receipt said otherwise. As soon as her ride dropped her at the fitness club entrance, she hopped into a second car and sped across town to meet Derek, Ethan's longtime business partner. The two of them synced calendars with the precision of air traffic controllers. Blissfully blind, Ethan kept living his best Hallmark fantasy. Until the Tuesday evening, he spotted a diamond and rose gold cuff sparkling on Chloe's wrist. He froze. He hadn't bought that. Where'd the bling come from? He asked, fingertips brushing the pricey links. For half a heartbeat, panic flickered in her eyes. Then a dazzling smile slid into place. "Oh, Katie loaned it to me. Remember Katie? She's obsessed with stacking bracelets." "Katie, who works the front desk at your gym?" Ethan frowned. "Since when does she lend out jewelry that'd pay my mortgage?" Chloe launched into a breathless story about Katie's older boyfriend showering her in duplicates. The tale tasted off. Too many details, the wrong kind of laugh. But Ethan couldn't name the lie. He tucked the suspicion away. First crack in the windshield. Crack 2 arrived, courtesy of a mysterious bruise on Chloe's hip. I bumped a kettlebell swear. And crack 3 when girls' night happy hours stretched from 2 hours to 6. Ethan's gut finally overruled his heart. A tech-savvy buddy mentioned a GPS sharing app you could slip onto a spouse's phone just to make sure she's safe. Ethan installed it with shaky hands. Data poured in. 3 days later, he sat staring at a map that showed Chloe bouncing from gym to random addresses nowhere near Pilates class, always for exactly 2 hours. Then back to Whole Foods like nothing happened on Thursday, 9 a.m. sharp. Chloe grabbed her designer duffel and pecked Ethan goodbye. 10 seconds later, Ethan sprinted downstairs, climbed into a rideshare, and pointed at her departing to ride sedan. Follow that car, $50 tip if you don't lose her. The driver's eyes lit up like Christmas. Chloe's first lift stopped at the Lux. Health Club. She hopped out, waved, and slid straight into a charcoal gray Audi idling by the curb. Ethan's stomach dropped. He rode in that Audi at least once a month. It belonged to Derek. Keep back, Ethan muttered. The Audi wound through Midtown and nosed into the valet lane of a boutique hotel, beloved by cheating executives. Ethan tipped his driver like a Vegas winner, told him to forget his face, and stalked inside, blood roaring in his ears. Through the lobby's floor-to-ceiling glass, he watched Derek drape an arm around Chloe's waist, drop a kiss on her temple, and hand over a room key. Rage tasted metallic on Ethan's tongue. He slapped $200 onto the reception counter. The couple who just checked in. What room? The young desk clerk stammered about privacy policies until Ethan's fist landed like a gavel. Room number coughed out on the next breath. Ethan took the stairs 2 at a time, heartbeat clocking 1,000 RPM. He pounded on the door hard enough to rattle drywall. Derek cracked it, eyes widening. Behind him, Chloe froze, silk blouse half unbuttoned, mascara wand still in hand. Ethan. Didn't speak. His fist did. Derek hit the carpet. Chloe screamed his name, begging him to stop, swearing she could explain. Ethan's knuckles hurt. His heart hurt worse. He backed off, sucked in air that smelled of expensive cologne and betrayal, and walked out without a word. At the front desk, he tossed more bills to the trembling clerk and told him to forget everything. He drove home on autopilot, downed half a bottle of scotch, and collapsed on the foyer rug while the night shift nanny rocked the baby in the nursery. He woke to toddler giggles and soup simmering, skull splitting, shame boiling in his gut. By sundown, Chloe was gone. Suitcase, toiletries, and every shred of trust packed tight. Divorce papers followed faster than a pren delivery. Chloe bluffed a custody fight, but Ethan's lawyer and her own guilt shut it down quick. Little Miles stayed. With Dad. Mom got visitation and a politely worded non-disparagement clause. She barely read. Derek lost his partnership the next day when Ethan's board heard the full story, plus a tidy spreadsheet of Derek's questionable expense reports Ethan had uncovered. At 3 a.m. rage browsing, HR escorted Derek out with an empty banker's box and a zip file of memories. For a hot minute, Chloe's life looked golden. Derek rented a posh loft, showered her in apology jewelry, promised she'd never need to clock in again. Then came the subpoena for misused company funds, and Derek's bank accounts froze harder than Minnesota February. Stress morphed him into a whiskey for breakfast kind of guy. When Chloe landed a retail job to cover utilities, he called her ungrateful and vanished for 4 days straight. 6 months after their grand affair began, he dumped her. Text message, 3 lines long. Chloe couch surfed, then leased a cramped studio off the interstate. Water stains on the ceiling, neighbors who argued through paper-thin walls. She stared at Instagram photos of the designer bags she'd sold cheap on Poshmark, wondering why hindsight always shows up too late. Ethan spent a brutal year rebuilding. Single dad life, trust issues, therapy sessions he hated but kept attending. Slowly the ache dulled. He threw himself into bedtime stories, weekend zoo trips, and trail runs that left his lungs burning in a good way. Some evenings he'd catch his reflection in the microwave door, bruise on his hand finally faded, and think, Mom warned me. He forgave her, called her, and introduced her to the grandson she'd never met. Linda cried, held Miles like a miracle, and never once said, I told you so. And that, my friends, is the tale. A heart led by glitter, a partner's blind faith, and the harsh clarity that arrives when the glitter washes off. Tell me in the comments, could you have spotted the red flags sooner? Would you install that tracker app or trust your gut? Smash, subscribe, ring that bell, and stick around for more stories where love, lies, and life lessons collide. Thanks for listening all the way to the end. Take care of your heart and keep your eyes wide open.